They didn't give me anything for my wedding. Now, they want me to spend $5,000 for my sisters? When I told them no, they labeled me selfish. Here's what actually occurred. I never imagined I'd be the bad guy in my own family. I mean, I wasn't the golden child when I was a kid, but I kept my head down, worked hard, did my homework, paid my mortgage, kept out of trouble. The quiet one, you know? The one you could count on. So sitting here now, getting cold-shouldered by my own sister because I won't pay $5,000 for her wedding? That's, I don't know, kind of surreal. But I guess I should begin at the beginning. I'm 31 now, 2 years married. My husband, Drew, and we organized our wedding ourselves. All the details. Spent all our own money on it. Venue, food, photographer, dress, music, everything down to the napkins had our names on the bill. And I never resented it. I really didn't. They didn't provide, and I didn't demand. Figured perhaps cash was a little tight. They'd always been sort of middle grade comfortable. Not struggling, but not necessarily overflowing with extra money either. My mother's a paralegal. My father's a mechanic. They're good people in their own right. I just figured they just didn't have the extra money lying around when it was my turn. Did it hurt a bit? Sure. I'd listened to friends tell me about their parents giving them $10,000 to spend on the wedding day or paying half the cost of the venue. And yeah, I'd feel a pang in my chest. But I never complained. Never made it an issue. Drew and I took care of it. And, to be honest, there was something nice about that. Beginning our life together completely on our terms. But then, forward to around 2 months back, my little sister, Claire, calls me. She's 28. Nice, somewhat flighty. Always been the more fragile one, I suppose? That's how Mom says it anyway. Claire's been going out with this guy, Matt, for probably 3 years. Real estate agent. Nice enough. They're getting married next spring. We were talking about venues, colors, that sort of superficial stuff, and everything was fine. Until a week later, when my mom called me, voice all chipper, like she was going to ask me for something small. Hey, honey, just wanted to loop you in about assisting with Claire's wedding. That's how she said it. Loop me in. So I'm thinking, okay, sure. Perhaps a family DIY day, folding programs, arranging centerpieces, that kind of thing. I didn't anticipate much, but I also didn't anticipate what was next. Mom cleared her throat in that manner of hers when she was going to slide into something awkward. So, we were thinking you and Drew could chip in maybe $5,000 to help with Claire's venue deposit. I actually laughed. Out loud. Not even accidentally. It just happened. One of those little sharp shocked laughs. Because $5,000? It wasn't like she was asking for $100 for stamps. $5,000. I sat there with the phone, this cold little lump forming in my stomach. Wait, you're serious? I questioned. Mom sounded bewildered, and I sounded bewildered. Well, yeah, it's family. Your sister really needs the help. I paused for a second, tried to catch my breath before speaking something I'd regret. Mom, you didn't help us when we got married. Silence on the other line. Just this low, awkward silence. At last she said, well, you and Drew were more settled financially. Claire's still getting things together. That right there, that statement. It struck me from the side. Like, seriously? Because Drew and I had shared it, it was now on us? That's how this was supposed to go? It wasn't even about the money at that precise moment. It was about what it stood for. About how invisible my work had felt 2 years ago, and suddenly I was supposed to be the family bank. I explained to her as nicely as I could that I wasn't okay with that. That Drew and I had paid for it ourselves, and I didn't think it was fair or right. Mom didn't handle it well. She didn't yell or swear or anything dramatic. That isn't her way. But her voice tightened. That clipped tone she uses when she feels trapped. I just don't get why you'd punish Claire for something she had no control over, she said. That word, punish. As if I was some kind of bad guy in all this. I hung up a little while later. Told her I'd think about it, but sincerely. I knew right then I wasn't changing my mind. Now Claire's not speaking to me. It's been a few weeks, and I've gotten nothing but radio silence from her. No texts. No calls. Nothing. Just little secondhand updates from my mom. And of course, mom's not exactly neutral. She's been laying it on thick. You know, your sister's really hurt. I just don't see why you're being so petty about this. Money comes and goes, but family's forever. Even my dad, who is usually silent, gave me this silent stare the last time I was there. Didn't say a word outright, but I could tell. That silent dad disappointment. And then there's my aunt weighing in over text. Sweetheart, it's just money. Let it go. Family matters more. Perhaps I'm heartless. Perhaps I don't know. I really don't know. But I can't help wondering. Where was all this family loyalty 2 years ago? Why wasn't it just money when it was my turn? And here's the kicker. It's not like I'm broke.
Drew and I are fine.
We have a savings account. We go on vacation. We're not living paycheck to paycheck. But that doesn't mean I want to write a $5,000 check because someone else thought now it's convenient. Especially when no one batted an eye when it was me standing there struggling to make sense of how to pay for cake tastings and photographer deposits on top of all of that. I mean, am I actually that off base? I find myself going over and over that conversation with my mom in my mind, the tightness in her voice making it clear she didn't like what I said, the soft, stinging disappointment. And I just have to wonder, is it actually about Claire? Or is it about mom and dad not wanting to look bad this time around? Because when I got married, there wasn't some huge, splashy wedding. We did it all fairly humble. Small location. No enormous guest list. But Claire's always been the princess of the family. I don't say that to be nasty. It's just accurate. She's the type who's always had someone intervene and correct things for her.
School, work, rent.
Little stuff along the way. Mom and dad fixed car problems for her twice that I know of. Paid for her to cover rent when she was living in that extravagant downtown apartment. So perhaps it shouldn't be shocking that they're pulling strings now. But I still can't help but think that it's more about appearances and less about assisting Claire. Like, now that their younger daughter is marrying, they want to make an appearance. Be the benevolent parents. Ensure that all is well for the rest of the extended family. Meanwhile, I get to sit here seething like the Scrooge who won't even crack open her purse. I find myself constantly thinking about my own wedding. Standing there with Drew, the two of us wiped out from doing all of it on our own. We literally made our centerpieces. Ordered our linens ourselves. I was up until 2 in the morning the night before folding programs because we couldn't pay to have them printed professionally. And nobody came to loop me in at that time. It was just him and me. That's what's resident in my chest at the moment. That cold, hard pain. I'm not angry with Claire. Not exactly. I mean, she's just trying to have her day out. But it's not easy not to resent the very same people who shook their heads at me being suddenly so generous now. And I don't know what to do about it. Do I cave? Write the check? Tell myself it's just money and let it go? Or do I follow my instinct and become the bad guy in my own family? Right now, I honestly don't know. But I do know this. The silence from Claire is slicing deeper than I anticipated. It's like
she's already decided.
I'm either useful or invisible. There's no in between.
And that
hurts more than I care to acknowledge. So that's where things left off.
Claire not talking to me.
My mom escalating in silence. A few days of silence, becoming a few weeks. And me, I just kept trying to rationalize it to myself. I wasn't wrong. That was the thing. I wasn't wrong. Except when it's family, right and wrong get fuzzy somehow. It seriously got under my skin the evening Drew and I had dinner at his parents' house. We were eating in their kitchen, chicken parm, nothing special, and his mom, always the one to get straight to the point, leaned in and asked, "Everything all right with your family recently? You've been quiet." I must have raised an eyebrow, because Drew practically jumped in and said, "Her sister's wedding business. It's been a little strained." His mother gave me the head tilt, the older woman look of empathy. "What's going on?" And I caught myself telling her the whole thing, about my parents asking for money, about Claire icing me out. When I was done, Drew's mother just shook her head. That's not fair, she said, as clearly as anything. That's not how it should work. It wasn't exactly earth-shattering, but hearing somebody else say it out loud, that helped. Nevertheless, easier said than done when it's your own blood. Later that evening, I was awake lying on my bed, replaying everything in my head, running it all on repeat. And that's when the guilt truly began seeping in. I couldn't help but keep imagining Claire sitting at her kitchen table with wedding books out in front of her, worrying about budgets, reminding herself I didn't care, that I wouldn't assist. Perhaps I was obstinate. Perhaps $5,000 wasn't the worst thing in the world.
I mean, Drew and I could pay it if we really wanted to.
I continued to flip it back and forth in my head. And then, like the universe had a sense of humor and wanted to salt the wound, my mom texted me the next morning. In one sentence, "You should really consider what type of sister you want to be remembered as." That stung harder than I had intended it to. The guilt mounted throughout the day. At work, I couldn't concentrate. Every email weighed me down. Every small task felt like I was wading through water. Finally, at about 5 o'clock, I snapped. I called Claire. It rang.
And rang. And rang.
Straight to voicemail. I was about to hang up. But then I heard the beep, and words just poured out before I could shut up.
Hey.
It's me. I don't know if you're still angry, but I just wanted to tell you, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I really wasn't. It's just difficult. You know? We did everything on our own. And now. Anyway, call me if you want to talk. I hung up, gazed at my phone as if it would just text me back. Nothing. The rest of the next 2 days, I made a point not to think about it. Stayed busy. Cleaned the house. Made lists. Anything. And then, Sunday afternoon, Claire called finally. My heart leaped when I saw her name. I answered quickly. Hey. There was silence on the other end, then her voice soft. Flat. Hey. It wasn't exactly a warm welcome, but it was something. We chatted for a bit. Small talk. How things had been at work. The weather. Full avoidance mode. At last, she said it. I really thought you'd be there for me on this. Her voice cracked slightly, and that's where everything got complicated again. Because listening to her sound that tiny made my heart twist. I didn't know what to say. Part of me needed to tell it all again step by step. Defend myself. Break it out like an attorney. Instead, I simply said, I know. I'm sorry. And it was true. I was sorry. I wasn't certain for what precisely, but I was. We didn't come to an agreement that day. Didn't make some sweeping compromise. She didn't ask again, and I didn't provide. But the air between us was less frozen. Still, after that phone call, I couldn't shake it. Thinking about it, turning it over in my head. This knot that I couldn't unravel. Because on one hand, family is family. But on the other hand, why does it always feel like I'm the only one who's supposed to stretch? And then something else occurred. I visited my parents' place that Thursday to deliver a birthday card to my father. I didn't intend to hang around. But when I arrived, I heard something that totally threw me. Mom was on the phone in the kitchen, door open just a little bit, so I could hear part of the conversation. She was speaking to my aunt, and what she said made me ill. Fine, if Claire can't get what she needs from her sister, we'll just pay it ourselves. I just didn't want to dip into the savings if we could help it. I stood there, frozen. Savings. As in, they had the money the whole time. They just didn't feel like spending it. I stepped back from the door, as if I'd been hit. And that's when everything clicked. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place like when I hadn't even known I'd been piecing together. It wasn't about Claire, though, or about being in need of assistance. It was about convenience. Mom and Dad didn't want to take it out of their own pockets. Perhaps for retirement, or a vacation, or something else. So they thought, why not me? I had the funds. Why not? I left the birthday card on the hall table and slipped out unnoticed. By the time I arrived home, my heart was racing. Drew caught sight of me and said, "What happened?" I told him all. From the eavesdropped phone call to the dawning realization climbing up my spine. His jaw tightened. "Are you serious?" he asked. "So, They had the money the whole time? Looks like it. That made everything different. The guilt
disappeared.
vanished as if it had never existed. Because it wasn't about me being cheap. It wasn't about Claire needing assistance. It was about my parents not wanting to pay again. I wasn't angry, really. Or possibly I was, but it felt more subdued than that. More entrenched. Like something that rested low in your bones. I stayed awake once more that evening, gazing at the ceiling. But this time, the narrative in my mind had a different conclusion. I wasn't going to pay. I wasn't going to be the backup plan. The emergency fund. The additional account my family reached into when things became awkward. That was the line. I wasn't crossing it.
So,
That was my line in the sand. But words don't amount to anything if you don't vocalize them. A few days later, after eavesdropping on Mom, Claire texted me once more. Casual now. Like nothing had ever occurred. Hey, just wondering if you thought more about the wedding stuff. No pressure, just figured I'd check. I looked at that message for some time. I could feel my jaw clenching. This was no longer about $5,000. This was about how it continued to happen. My family had the habit of treating me as the go-to adult. The one that could afford to assist. The one who wouldn't complain. That had been nestled in my chest for years, truly. As if I wasn't truly a sister or a daughter. I was an asset. So I took a deep breath. And I phoned Claire. She answered almost right away. Hey, she said, all cheerful, as if nothing was tight. I interrupted her. Claire, can we have a moment of reality here? That stilled her.
yeah.
What's going on? I paced in my kitchen, hand on my forehead. I heard Mom the other day, when I was at the house. She said to Aunt Lisa they'd pay for your wedding if I didn't. There was silence on the line. I continued, voice growing steadier. So, it's not that you guys can't afford it. It's that you don't want to spend it. Claire finally replied, quieter now. I didn't know that. I let that hang there. I'm not angry with you, I told her. But I'm also not okay being used like I'm the family ATM. I paid for my entire wedding myself. No help. Not a single dollar. And I never made it anyone else's issue. Another silence. I understand, she said finally. I wasn't attempting to. Her voice cracked again. Mom made it sound like it'd really be a help. I sat at the kitchen table, pounding heart, but I tried to keep my voice steady. I'm sure she did. But Claire, I love you. And I want you to have the wedding you want. I really do. But I can't. I can't be the only one who gives up for it. That was the ugliest part, really. To say it aloud. I wasn't attempting to be icy. I simply couldn't continue to pour out of a cup no one ever took the time to refill. It was a long while before Claire spoke up, then she said, Okay, I understand. She sounded disappointed, but no longer angry.
And that
was some small consolation. But it didn't end there. Because the very next day my mom phoned. I answered, already preparing myself. She didn't waste any time. Why did you say something to your sister? No greeting. No how are you. Just get to the point. I held my voice firm. Because I needed to be honest. I overheard you speaking with Aunt Lisa. A harsh intake of breath on the other end. That wasn't your business, she snapped. Wasn't it? I fired back. You made it my business when you asked me for money. Your sister's struggling, she said, voice turning all sweet and guilt-ridden. We just assumed. You assumed I'd pay for it because it's cheaper than you spending your own money. Silence. I wasn't dropping it this time. I'm done, Mom. I love you, but I'm not paying for Claire's wedding. And I don't want to make it some huge family drama, but if that happens, that's on you. Another long silence. Then her voice, subdued now. You've changed. That hurt. But also,
didn't.
Maybe I have, I replied. Maybe I should have changed a long time ago. We didn't hang up for long after that. No actual resolution. But for the first time in some time, I was able to breathe. I was found standing in the kitchen afterward by Drew, just staring out the window, hands dug into the counter. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, I replied, voice level. I really am. The thing about standing up to yourself. You kind of think that everything will just come crashing down after. At least I did. That evening after I hung up on Mom, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, waiting for the fallout. The texts, the angry voicemails, the guilt. But morning dawned, and there was nothing. No missed calls. No passive-aggressive family group chat going off. Just silence. And honestly, that frightened me more than if they'd have come out swinging. I didn't know whether to be relieved or abandoned. Drew rolled over in bed, with one arm crossing over my waist. "You're really quiet," he said, his voice hoarse from sleep. "Yeah." I let the air out slowly. "Just waiting for the storm, I guess." He kissed my shoulder. "You already weathered it." And perhaps that was true. But it really wasn't until a week later. Claire's bridal shower. I came close to not going. For a time, I said to myself it'd be simpler just to stay away. Let them all gossip behind my back. Make me out to be the hard one. But that didn't sit well either. So I went. Walked in my aunt's front door, with a bottle of wine in one hand and a smile on my face that I wasn't certain was genuine. I could feel the tension the moment I crossed the threshold. Like when the music continues to play, but everyone's now paying attention. Claire stood near the table loaded with food, opening presents. She looked up, eyes locking with mine, and the entire expression on her face relaxed. "Hey," she said, almost under her breath. "Hey." I walked over slowly. Everyone was still watching, my mom included, standing by the kitchen island like she was holding court. I could feel her stare, but I kept my focus on Claire. "Didn't think you'd come," Claire said, voice low, not quite smiling. "Yeah, well." I shrugged. "You're still my sister." Her eyes got shiny then, and I knew, in that moment, we were okay. Not perfect. Not repaired. But fine. We spent the afternoon chatting, not finances, not family soap operas. Just regular stuff. Dresses. Jobs. Stupid reality shows. At one moment, I caught Mom observing us from across the room. Her look. I don't know. It wasn't exactly anger. It wasn't exactly regret either. It was something in between. And to be honest, I didn't feel like I needed to diagnose it. That evening, when I arrived home, I opened my phone and gazed at the stale family group chat. Still silent. No message. So I wrote one out. "Glad I went today. Hope everyone's okay." Plain spoken. Matter of fact. Leaving the door a crack open. But not flinging the door wide. My dad liked the message. And roughly an hour later, my mom finally answered. "Glad you were there too." That was it. No apology. No elaborate explanation. Just that. But I'll take it. Because here's the thing that I learned through all this. Sometimes family doesn't change. Sometimes they never really say sorry. Never really get it. But that doesn't mean you can't set your own boundary. It doesn't mean you can't protect your own peace. Drew and I discussed it later, on the couch, wine glasses in our hands. "You know," he said, "I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For finally saying no." I glanced over at him, and for the first time in a long time I didn't feel bad. "Yeah," I said, smiling slightly. "Me too." Claire's wedding came a couple months later. It was smaller than it had been originally planned. Not some big deal with a ballroom and open bar. But nice. And guess what? My parents covered it. In full. That part caught me off guard. Not because they couldn't, but because they did, finally. Perhaps my no compelled them to take it to the next level. Perhaps not. I don't know. But either way, I was no longer carrying that load. I danced with Claire at the reception. She hugged me tightly at the end of the evening, speaking softly. "Thanks for coming." Really. And that made every bit of awkwardness worth it. On the way home, I do recall looking out the window, considering my own wedding, how I'd accomplished it all by myself, how I loved that, and how, perhaps, that made me stronger than I did myself justice. I'm not bitter anymore. At least. Not really. I just know where I stand these days. And that's plenty. That's more than plenty. If you've ever been caught between standing your ground and keeping the peace, you know this feeling. Hit subscribe for more true family stories like this one.